Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly discussion series that's hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with U of M Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. I'm your host, Wiam Memu, and today our guest is Tareq Naser. Hello, Tareq.
Hello, Wiam. How are you?
I'm good. So, Tareq is an Arab Muslim who has called America home for over 3 decades. Beyond his roles as an IT specialist and real estate broker in North Carolina, he has carved out a space as a blogger and YouTube content creator, navigating the intersections of history, identity, and geopolitics. He explores topics that aim to shed light on the lesser known facets of history and contemporary issues, challenging misconceptions and fostering a deeper understanding among many diverse audiences. So that's how Tareq and I ended up on a 2-hour call because there were so many topics that we're both familiar with. But what I really enjoyed, that you're a very good listener, I have to say that. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult to have that kind of conversation with you.
Thank you.
All right. So before we start, tell us about your birthplace and your childhood so we can get a better understanding of the topics that you later focused on.
Okay. So as you introduced me, my name is Tareq Naser. I am Palestinian, as you also introduced me. I was born in a small town called Yamoun in a bigger city called Jenin. And I think anyone who follows the news nowadays, they see Jenin on the news almost every day. Jenin this, Jenin that. There's so much happening nowadays in Jenin. I was born in 1965. Then 2 years later, 1967, war happened between Israel and a few Arab countries. My family were divided, were cut in half. Practically half of them went to Jordan. The other half stayed in Palestine in hiding. Until this day, I'm not sure exactly when most of my family or half of them made the decision to leave. I still struggling with the idea or the knowledge or why some of them decided to leave and the other one decided not to. Unfortunately, the one who left, my father, my mother included, we could never go back after that. And I could never go back to Palestine until I became an American citizen about 15 something years ago. Without being an American citizen, I had no chance of ever going there. So my mom actually is not Palestinian. My father is the Palestinian. My mom is Egyptian. When my dad finished his college degree, I believe in 1963, possibly in Egypt, he met my mom, fall in love, got married, and they moved back together to Palestine with all these big dreams. Unfortunately, 2 years into this marriage, I was already been 2 years already, and they decided that they can't stay in Palestine because the whole situation in Palestine was completely upside down. And my mom and my dad walked on foot all the way from Jenin all the way to Jordan until they managed to get a taxi, I believe, and finally they went to some family home in Jordan. And we've been living in Jordan. My family, most of them, been living in Jordan for since that time.
So, Tareq, you recently visited Michigan, and because you read an article about Dearborn that led you here. And by the way, one of the reasons that I did invite you here is because April is Arab American Heritage Month. It's also Chaldean American Month. And we discussed so many things. I mean, we're both from the same region, different religions, different countries, but we're both from the same region. And from what you just described, our families have experienced, our people have experienced similar experiences in different ways.
Yes.
So I think that was part of the connection that, sometimes people take for granted that different groups experience genocide, different groups experience massacres in those areas. And when we start sharing our stories, we find that we have so many similarities.
Yes.
But something that you saw in a paper, I'd like you to share that story that led you to come to Michigan. And by the way, before that, had you visited Michigan previously? No?
That article is the reason why I decided to go to Michigan. I've been trying. I planned 2 times and it didn't work out for me for one way or the other
So
until I
share what the article was and what was
yeah.
about.
So on February the 2nd, 2024, which is about 3 months ago, not even 2.5 months ago, I came across this article written by some guys named Steven Stilinski at the Wall Street Journal, and the headline the headline of the article says, "Welcome to Dearborn, America's Jihad Capital," and that bothered me because it brought back some old trauma from about 15 something years ago, 18 years ago, I think. I'm not sure. Uh, there was a TV show that was sponsored by, I believe it was by TLC, possibly also by Lowe's Home Improvement, called Muslims in America or American Muslims. And the entire show was filmed in Dearborn because of the fact that the Arabs and Muslims are the largest community in America. And that show caused so much um, trouble to Arabs and Muslims to the point that many organizations, mostly the Baptists, the Christians, right-wing Zionist groups, put a lot of pressure on the producers of the show and on Lowe's Home Improvement, who were sponsoring the show, to stop sponsoring the show. And sadly, they capitulated and they stopped producing the show, and that was the end of it. And I remember vividly one time when some Americans, some sadly ignorant American, who commenting on the show, how the show does not represent the truth about Arabs, the truth about Muslims, and Muslims and Arabs are not peaceful people, and this show is just nothing but a propaganda. And when I look at myself as an Arab, as a Muslim, who was married to an American woman with 5 kids, I look inward and say, what is it that I'm doing so bad that people can't even tolerate a TV show that talks about me and my people? So that was years and years ago. Then this article came on Wall Street Journal, and I told myself, maybe today is the day. I need to go see for myself and visit Dearborn and document it, which is what I did. I have tons of footages and videos, and I'm working on making a nice size video. I might even make it 2 sections of videos. And I had the pleasure going to the museum, the Arab Museum in Dearborn, and that was an eye opening for me. Um, I did not know the Arabs in Michigan began arriving there almost since 1880 or even prior to that. I did not know that. I was under the impression maybe in the past 50, 60, 70 years tops. Apparently, I was wrong. So, yeah, but going back to your question, the article by the gentleman, by this writer, bothered me a lot. And I decided I'm going to go see for myself. And I learned a lot since then.
So what was the major thing that you saw here that, I've been to Dearborn. That I don't know if anybody actually that of Middle Eastern background that hasn't been to Dearborn. And Dearborn, by the way, it's a diverse city. It's not just Arab Muslim. It's a diverse city, but it has a lot of the heart of the Arab culture in there. The restaurants, the cafes, the museum, which like I've gone myself to it many times, and that's the nice experience. What did you feel seeing all of that side? And then I know later you ended up going. Did you end up coming to Sterling Heights as well, or no?
Yes,
You did.
I
Okay.
went to Sterling Heights, and I want to salute and say hello to my best friend, Jannah Yusuf. She's Iraqi from Baghdad. I did not know her prior to coming to Dearborn. I met her on the internet. She introduced that community to me, and she said, "We would love to have you here." And she was my host for the entire time. And maybe if it wasn't for Jannah, I possibly would not be able to do what I managed to do. So I want to just thank her for that. Now, I don't. I saw the restaurant. I saw the coffee shops. I saw the wonderful people. I saw the community. I fell in love with it. In fact, I fell in love so much that part of my brain is literally thinking about moving to Dearborn. This is how much I fell in love
I
with it.
remember you were having a hard time leaving.
But then I had the question mark about until I went to the museums, I wasn't being able to connect the dots. Like how these people so comfortable in their skin here in Dearborn. One thing struck me about Arabs from all diverse background in Dearborn, unlike any other city in America, and I travel a lot in America, and I met a lot of Arabs in all sorts of cities and counties and states. Only in Dearborn, I saw Arabs behaving like they own the place. They're not feeling inferior. They're not feeling as a second class citizens. There's no that of, oh my God, someone looking at me. Look, they're watching me. I did not get that. Unlike any other place in America, me as an Arab, the minute I open my mouth, the minute I start speaking, people start looking at me. It's just instantly. And then I had to go to the museum. I figured out exactly what's happening. I found out that Arabs have been into Dearborn way back, some maybe before other ethnicities that maybe arrived in America much later than 1880 or 1870. Then I came across all these amazing exhibits, and I learned about George Domani. Never heard of George Domani. As a guy who is so passionate about the discoveries and expeditions in North Pole, South Pole, I learned a lot for the past 20 years about Robert Scott, about Amundsen from Norway. I learned about Ernest Shackleton. Two out of these people never even made it to the South Pole, but everybody knows about them. No one knows about George Domani, the Palestinian Lebanese geologist who single-handedly proved the theory of they were called the continent drift. And these two mountains in Antarctica are named after George Domani. I didn't know that. So that kind of made me sad how I know all the other people from Shackleton to Robert Scott, but I never heard of Domani, not even in any channel that talks about discoveries. And there's many of these drama shows that, in fact, gave him more than enough time. I never heard of this. And then I heard about Krista McAuliffe, the lady who, what do you call the substitute teacher who died on the Challenger shuttle in 1986. It turns out that she's a half a Lebanese, half Arab. I did not know that. I did not know that the producer and the screenwriter of one of my favorite movies, Liar Liar, is a Lebanese Arab. I did not know that. So all these things I learned from the museum. And I actually had too much, almost like 500 photos and 3 videos possibly. I could go on and on and on and on.
Yeah, the museum, I gotta tell you, like I visited it many times, and it's very hard to fit everything in within one visit because there's so much information.
You need much more of that. And I learned the hard way too that next time if I go, and God willing, I am coming again for that, I'm gonna fix my cameras because I think the museum is a little darker for my camera's taste. So I need to bring a better camera next time because some of the photos did not come out really.
This was like a rehearsal.
Yeah, sadly. But overall, I came up with an amazing.
And also, you were planning, it didn't work out, but you were planning also to come to the Chaldean Museum. And that didn't work out because that didn't work out, but I know that you had intentions to come. So, inshallah,
absolutely,
next time.
absolutely. Yeah. I want to, and now since the weather now is nice and spring, it's perfect time actually. Yeah.
Oh, that will be nice. So you know what, Tareq, and then because when you wanted to come to the museum, so you were asking if you can take some footage. And so Zina, who works with us, she contacted me, and then I contacted you to kind of see the content or what was the purpose. And we ended up in a very nice conversation, very nice. That was neither one of us really planned it. No, and it was fun. You know, the thing is, again, like there's this commonality that we have, and I think especially if you were born there, like I was born in Baghdad, you were born in Palestine, so when you're born there, there's like a different level of feelings, I think, that people connect to. But you know, we had a conversation about our different faiths, the Arab Chaldean identity, and a lot of other topics, and it was a very nice conversation. And I feel like you learned some things and I learned some things from this conversation, but in your opinion, how can we, just people in general, engage in respectful discussions about sensitive topics, including like right now, even the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? How can we have that without just merely pointing fingers and just one feeling like the other should be like, excluded from the table? I mean, you're from that region. You would be the best to kind of give that feedback, especially I think the fact that you've been here so long. Sometimes it helps when there is a little bit of a distance because I think that a person can be, sometimes when you're too close to that region, it's just harder to think the way that you might be able to give feedback about that.
That's true. Let me just say this: these are two different, separate things. Let's say uh, the inner relationship between Arabs themselves, Muslims and non-Muslims, Chaldeans, different types of Arab Christians, Christian Palestinians, Muslim Palestinians. That is one group of people who need to reach out to each other and do a better job. I don't think we're doing a good job. And I've been accused all the time that I dive into too many topics and I go into so many territories, and people ask me, but why? Like, why you do that? And the answer to that is this is my nature from when I was much younger. I just love to meet people. I've been accused I talk too much. That could be true too, but that's for the purpose of getting to know more people, try to engage more people. I don't have a filter. I don't have a what do you call 'em, a partition in me. I don't have that. So I am an open person who want to meet all kind of people. I don't think we as an Arab community, Muslims or non-Muslims, Iraqis or Lebanese, I don't think we're doing a good job. I think we have many internal problems. And I do think we have, and this is just being strictly honest, I think we have within us some sort of a biases based on the region that we come from. And that is a fact. And we have to address that. We have to be honest with it, and we have to embrace the diversities. But at the same time, we cannot continue having those biases because we will be divided. And when you are divided, you will easily be conquered, and no one cares about you. So that's a problem. Now, on the other side,
But
you
that, I
have
want
to.
I want to follow up with a question about you before you go to the other
Yeah.
side. You just made a very good point. I've been talking about that. I told you I'm also an author and filmmaker that I have tried to address these issues through writing, through storytelling. And I have found that this is one of the areas, it's one of the most important areas that we tend to not address things within our own selves, within our own communities that we can honestly talk about, that we know exist. Is there a fear of opening up to that area? That's one thing in the Western system, that there is an openness that's, maybe way beyond, you know, what I would think sometimes, it gets too much for people, but at the same time, you feel like, but there's this openness that I sometimes really admire, that other communities can be that open, that I know that even from where I come from, there are some things that it's very hard to express. Like, how can we break that a little bit, and it really is necessary for us to do that in order to find some of these solutions.
Okay. For us to know exactly how to fix them, we have to know what caused them. When Zionism came to our part of the world in begin when 1915, 1916, even before that, sometime I will say it goes back to the Ottoman Empire times. When they came, they did not come just to take Palestine. Taking Palestine, it was part of the plan. But for that to happen, they had to destroy the entire region. They have to do divide and conquer. They had the British who helped them tremendously. And when the Ottoman Empire came down, even though it wasn't the most perfect model of governing, but at least the Ottoman Empire kept some sort of a balance between all sorts of ethnicities and minorities. It wasn't the greatest for certain people, aka our Christians, brothers and sisters, and some other minorities. But at the same time, there was none of the things that we are witnessing now. So when they came to the region, I'm talking about the Zionists, they created many issues. They started fights between different groups of people. They pushed I call them the new nationalist dictators. So they took the empire down, and instead of the empire, installed people in Iraq, in Egypt, in Jordan. All of these dictators who came after the collapse of the empire, they were all appointed by the British and the French and what have you, but mostly by the Brits, with the cooperation of the Zionist leaders in Palestine, and did a great job. So now you got people in Iraq, Jordan, Palestine, poking trouble between certain ethnicities and creating a situation where now there's fear, and that fear caused many people to leave. When they're left with trauma. And
And
that
you're
trauma is
talking
still
about
with
it
us till
caused
now.
people to leave from where? Are you
From their own
talking?
homes, they were pushed out. They
No,
were
no. Are
egged
you
on.
specifically talking about Palestine
I'm
or?
talking about Palestine. I'm talking about Iraq. I'm talking about Egypt. All these dictators that were appointed in Jordan. I don't know about Jordan. Jordan, in fact, sadly, it became the deposit where all these money is now hide into. But that's a more recent phenomenon. I'm
But
talking
like,
about since,
but see, like, people like from Iraq would have a different version of when this started happening. Like, for instance, there was the 1915 genocide.
yeah,
It was by the Ottoman Empire that there was hundreds of thousands of Christians that were destroyed during that time. And then in the 1800s, there was also a genocide against. So for for our communities, for instance, and this is some of the things that we talked about over the phone, we have I mean, this is unfortunate to say, but like the Middle East in general has had there's been so much conflict for like over 1,000 years. Honestly, if you look at it, there's pockets of peaceful situations, and like I remember for me, the government and the rulers are always, of course, different than the people. Like I grew up amongst the Muslims, and we felt like they were. I mean, we didn't even differentiate because the feelings is different when you're between the human beings and the ruling governments and things like that. So some of the things that you're saying, like I'll give you a version, for instance, like for the Chaldeans or a lot of the Christians, for instance. We they feel like this has been going on for them, like, well, we couldn't share our identity or say who we are. But then some of the things that happened, including that article, which was upsetting to many people, including even I was disturbed by it because that city, has a different meaning for me. But supposedly, I guess the writer, his version was that because of all the celebrations that were taking place after what happened. To me, that's not the Arabic community that I know. I know, like, but it's kind of hard to explain that this is going on. Like, I, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to see, like, now. I understand that there's a past trauma. We experienced this past trauma, I think, also ourselves because of the genocides. And we had to do so much confrontations. And ourselves, even the Babylonians, they went into Jerusalem and destroyed Jerusalem and took the Jews into Babylon, where they worked to help build that empire. And there was a lot of Jews in Iraq, like over 160,000 that were now, none of them live there. So there's so much in that region. There's so much complexity. But like, how do we, you're right, we need to discuss these and we need to see that. But if we were just to kind of pinpoint at a certain person, or a certain entity or a certain government, how are we going to get past the healing or take accountability for our own action? I think this is the question I want to get to, is
okay.
that how do we take accountability, especially because we learned that in the Western system, that, like at certain point, it's good to look at the past, but how do we take accountability so that our names are not brought in such a bad way?
Okay. I do want to go back to the Ottoman Empire for 1 second, only if you allow me. At the same time, the Ottoman Empire was doing what you're saying that they done to the Chaldeans, to the Armenians, what have you. Most people do not know this. When the World War One began, the Ottoman Empire were drafting young men from all over the Arab world, And I know firsthand for about 100,000 Palestinian men from age 16 to age 50 something were drafted to the war effort to fight on behalf of the Ottoman Empire or Turkey, never came back. So the Ottoman Empire were not a group of nice people per se. They stole the food, grains, crops, money. They made people go bankrupt in Palestine and other places also in Lebanon, in Syria, what have you. They were not exactly the nicest people. What I'm saying is the government that came after that, that was appointed by so-called the British Mandate, they were not nice too. And on their hands, till this day, we are seeing the mass migration. Yes, there was some nasty things happen, but since, let's say, for example, from the 60s till today, the number of Christian brothers and sisters who fled way more than what happened in the past 50, 60 years prior to that. And that's because of the non-stop state of war that the Middle East has been going through. And that's all designed by the Brits, by the Zionists, and they won the whole thing. Now, that's the past. How we deal with it in the future time, we have to unite. I never spoke to you for 2 hours, and in the back of my head, I'm speaking to a Christian woman or Chaldean. I'm speaking to a wonderful Arab woman who reminds me with home. You have that soft sound of my sisters and my mother, what have you. I never saw anything past that point. I think we need to go back to these roots. As humans, as Arabs, we have so much to unite us. And we need to stop pointing fingers. I agree with you. There is a lot of pain and struggle. The Zionist propaganda, the Zionist consequences of what they're doing to us, it is separate because the Armenian genocide and the Chaldean genocide, sadly, while it accomplished what it was supposed to do, and most of Christians sadly left the Middle East, but the Zionists and the Palestinian struggle are happening now. So we're going to be in the next phase. We going to be evicted. No matter what anybody says, only gullible people think that we're going to win this battle. Maybe win it in 50 years from now, but the Palestinians now are the current day refugees who are going to be evicted one way or the other. And it's in Jenin. Most people don't know that in Jenin and West Bank, there's equal genocide that's taking place right this minute, and it's not just in Gaza. So there's two things. We need to fix our home, our house in America and the West as Arabs unite, speak to each other, open our hearts and open the doors. But we cannot also not being honest with what's happening back home because it's happening before our eyes.
So I totally agree with that. That yes, we have to look within and we have to communicate some of the things that have been happening. But do you find that sometimes people have difficulty hearing us when there are
Yes.
certain things taking place?
Yes, because we're loud.
Recently,
We are emotional. We let emotion get into
emotional.
Yeah.
Now, and this is what I'm trying to say. I understand where you're coming from, and see, you're expressing it in a way where you are. Actually, what's happening here is we're having a conversation.
Yes.
We're having a conversation. You're listening to me. I'm listening to you. So we are allowing to hear each other's point of view, right? And we're learning in the process. And sometimes just that listening is very helpful for the healing, by the way. Sometimes, regardless of, I don't have to agree, and you don't have to agree, but that listening helps create that relationship and that understanding and that healing. But some of the ways that this is happening is not very healthy. And I think that anybody who has, we have an invested interest, Chaldeans or not, we are from that region. We still have people in that region, and I would love to be able to visit regularly. And I have so many people that I care about there, Chaldeans and non-Chaldeans alike, many, many friends. So we all have an invested interest in the Middle East, and I have wonderful, wonderful friends in Israel and Palestine, and I visited Ramallah and stayed there for a couple of weeks and just loved the people, loved the experience, went to Jerusalem. So nobody wants the hurt that's happening, whether it's terrorism or the war, all these innocent people being killed. How can, as the Arab American community, this is Arab American Heritage Month, and we want peace for all of them. Everybody deserves to have a home and to have a peaceful life. But how can we be heard though with some of the negativities that happen? Like, for instance, you said You were upset about that article. I was upset about. I didn't like that article at all. That's not. It does not reflect how I see Dearborn. But then you'll have some of the things, and you know, the media just loves to grab on some of the things that are happening, including like recently, some of the things that are being said. What advice would you give if you're talking directly to your community as an Arab American, particularly someone from that region, so you have even a closer um, relationship to that? What advice would you give your brothers and sisters right now?
Okay, so what I did here in my small town of Creedmoor, North Carolina, where I live, I, as an IT specialist, and I was at some point the only full-time retail shop in this town. I've been here for 20 years. I made a lot of friends over the years. And then I used my platform when Facebook became a thing. I started educating people about Arabs, about Palestine, about the Middle East. And I began to put in some little articles. I started reading some blogs. I had some pushback, but then at the same time, I had many people say, I didn't even know that. I had no idea. So this is the common theme all the time. I did not know. So this is a great place to start with. You need to teach people, educate them, and not balk at them, not yell at them. They don't know. Your job is to teach them, not to discipline them. You cannot punish someone for not knowing. You can't throw accusation of left and right when it's just a simple fact that these people didn't know. I found across the time over 20 years, as I said, especially when Facebook came, thing that I gained so much of that understanding, even though I am living in North Carolina in the part where the majority of my neighbors and my customers in this community are the typical Southerners, church going, conservative, into possibly supporting Israel. And this is not a secret. Yet I found a lot of support over the time. And they said, I really did not know that. And I think this is where we need to start. We need to stop with the old ideas of they hate us, so we have to stop talking to them. They will never understand, so why bother? I don't think this is a very productive way of doing things. I think we should write, educate, share, and approach people. One thing I have to say about my community, the Arabs, Muslim or non-Muslims, we do not extend our hands to explain. We are more private. We are more inward. We prefer to reach out to our own people. I struggle with that with my own family who live in America, who over the years and years, they failed, sadly, to reach out to the larger American communities the way maybe I did. And I could never understand that. And I still think it's a bad idea.
Well, that was beautifully said. I totally believe the same thing, that through storytellings, and our communities are similar too. Again, like I think when you come from the Middle East, there's just that tendency to be more, you know, whether you're Christian, even though this is mostly like a Judeo-Christian culture here, but still the Middle East has different. We have a different language, we have a different lifestyle. It's not like coming from European countries. However, so we have this tendency to kind of lean on each other and keep things within ourselves, and we're learning through the process of other how to utilize the beautiful Western side. But I think that storytelling is very important. I think communication is very important. And you and I, out of one conversation, have created an opportunity, a platform right now to share our thoughts with the world, aside from all the other works that you do and I do to help do that. So thank you so much, Tareq. I do look forward to meeting you in person. I think I like what you're trying to do. I like your honesty, okay? And you're a very good listener. And our community and everybody in general actually right now really needs to listen to each other and to the other side. And you're a very good example of that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure knowing you and talking to you on the phone. Thank you for giving me all the time that I don't know if I deserve or not, but thank you. Looking forward to seeing
No,
you.
you must. Allah, جابنا سوية بالحكي, so I'm sure
الله
that
يبارك فيكي. مع السلامة في رعاية
I'm
الله.
sure. Thank you so much. God bless. Thank you
Bye bye.
everybody for watching. Take care. Bye bye.